and welcome to my tutorial. Today we will look at an interesting topic examining differences in political interest and trust in government between urban and rural populations. So in this study, we will compare individuals' level of political interest and trust in government among two independent groups, that includes urban and rural residents, using Likert scale data set. So most people that conduct independent sample t-test analysis usually collect data that are already continuous. What do I mean by data that has been continuous? I mean the height of individuals, weight, test score, exam scores. Okay, so but in this case, I'm going to also show you how you can use Likert scale data for your dependent variables if you want to collect data using Likert scale when you want to conduct independent sample t-test or compare means of two groups. So remember that independent samples t-test is about two independent groups. So in this case, I have urban and rural residents. That leads me to the null hypothesis that I have posed. So the first one, of course, the null should be that there is no significant difference in the level of political interests and trusts in government between the urban and rural populations, while the alternate would be the opposite of the null. And then again, so this hypothesis would allow us to test whether the mean scores of political interest and trust in government as measured by the Likert scale differ significantly between the two groups. So in this case, the rural versus the urban. So I have a data set that I would like us to use for this study, and so this is 30, which means there are two groups. So we have the urban and then we have the rural residents. So that's giving us a total of 30. So I will go to SPSS. So in SPSS, the first thing I need to do is to instruct the SPSS and let the SPSS know the variables I want to work with. So the first you need to notice is that we have the variable view and then we've got the data view. So in the variable view, I will write first the group. I use the 6 item statements each to measure political interests. So you can see how my item statements look. They're looking pretty good. I personalize all the item statements, so you can also pause the video to see how the item statements look like. And then you can see the 6 item statements used for collecting data on trust in government. Okay, now I will create political interest 1, so I can have it poll 1, political interest 2, political interest 3, political interest item statement number 4, political interest item statement number 5, political interest item statement number 6. Okay, then remember that for trust in government, I also have 6 item statements used to collect data that measured trust in government. All right, so the next will be I can have trust 1, trust 2, trust 3, trust 4, trust 5, trust 6. And then I would like to keep my decimals to 0 so that I'll be sure of the values that I've got. And then I also want to put my Likert scales in ordinal in ordinal measures. However, I like to also let you know that whether this is on ordinal or nominal or scale, SPSS will definitely perform the analysis correctly for you. Okay, so whether this is checked or unchecked, that's not a problem. All right, so now that I've instructed the SPSS, so under the value for groups, so I'd like to tell the SPSS that group 1 are, if you come to my data set, so I've got two groups, the urban and the rural. So the first group are those in the urban center. So I will say urban residents. 2, rural residents. Then I will add, I'll click OK. Now let us go to data view. So when you go to the data view, so you're going to put your data in the vertical row. Remember, in the variable view you put on the horizontal row. It looks like horizontal row, but in this case your data is going to appear in vertical row. So what do? I head over to Microsoft Excel, and then I'm going to copy for political group 1 to 6. Copy, and then I head over to my SPSS, remember, and I paste. So my data is here. So remember, I also go back to and then pick on the ones on trusts. Copy. So that's for trust 1 to 6, and then the data set has been coded and imported fully into the SPSS. There are other ways you can import data directly using the Microsoft Excel. I can simply import this data directly into the SPSS, but I just want to be sure that you follow the procedures, the processes, the way I am conducting this study, so you can do it on your own. Now remember that I've got 30 respondents, so I've got two groups here. So group 1 are those in the urban center, so I'm going to put 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 into 15, and then the same thing here, group 2 into 15, making it 30. So when I click here, so you can see what that shows me. All right, so you can see urban and rural residents. Okay, 1 representing urban and 2 rural residents. Okay, so now that I have imported my data into the SPSS, the first thing I need to do is to check some assumptions. And of course, I like to let you know that I've got the Likert scale on 5-point scale. All right, so this will help to measure the level of political interest and trust in government among respondents in a quantifiable way. Okay, so there are some basic checks I need to make. So the first one is to check the reliability analysis. I need to be sure that because these data were collected using Likert scale questionnaire, so that means that I need to be sure that they are meeting at least reliability coefficient. So I will go to analyze, I'll go to scale reliability. So I'm going to select the first group, insert here, and then check my reliability. So the first one gives me 0.85. That's pretty high. So I can have the table, I can have my results of analysis. So let me show you how you can report your results. So you can start by saying Chromebox Alpha result for political interest was 0.85, and that of trust in government was, so let me check that of the government, and I'll check. So I'm going to knock these ones back and then bring this in and then run the analysis again. So this one is 0.849. So again, if you approximate, that's going to give us again 0.85 both. Okay, so that's for reliability results. If you want, you can also copy the results. You can also copy the reliability results like this, copy, and then drop them into the analysis. So now that we've done that, the next thing we need to check is to be sure that the data meets assumptions of normality. So the next is normality test or test of normality. So we're going to go back to the SPSS to check normality. Now that we have already confirmed the Cronbach's alpha reliability for the both dependent variables that we've got, the next thing we need to do is to compute the variables to have continuous variable to enable us conduct independent samples t-test, because we have to convert the Likert scale data into continuous variable to enable us conduct a parametric test like independent sample t-test. Okay, so we'll go on to compute, and so I'm going to have political underscore interest, and then I will go to statistical, okay, and then go to sum. If you want, you can use the mean, you can use the median, you can use the sum. All right, so but today, if you check other videos, I usually use the mean, but today I'd like to use the sum. So I'm going to put, and I will click comma, item statement number 3, comma, item statement number 4, comma, item statement number 5, comma, and then item statement number 6. And then I will click OK. So that will create for us a new variable called political interest. So you can see that right here. Then I will head over to compute that of trust in government, trust underscore government. So let's delete this one and then put my trust, comma, trust number 3, comma, item statement number 4 for trust, comma, item statement number 5 for trust, and then item statement number 6 for trust. And then I will click OK, and so that has also created the second dependent variable, trust in government. So I like to also keep it at 2 decimal. Okay, so at this point, the next thing I need to do is to check the test of normality, just like I've written here. So I'm going to head over here. I'll go to analyze, descriptive, explore. Then I'm going to put the political interest and trust into the dependent variable list. And then for the analysis and statistics, and for the statistics, you're going to leave it at default. Again, on the plot, I'm going to uncheck this, but I want to only see the normality plus test. Then I'll click OK. You can see that under this analysis, I've got the test of normality. So this is my my interest. If you look at the Shapiro-Wilk tests, what we need to be sure is that the sig value here is above 0.05 significant level. All right, so we've got 0.094 for political interest, and we've got 0.0 0.084 for government interest. Okay, but if we look at the Kolmogorov-Smirnov test, the political interest is 0.200, while that of government interest is statistically significant. So we may, but again, given that this is a Likert scale data, we will actually consider both of them to be normally distributed. So I can copy this result and then put it here and report that both tests are meeting the test of normality. Remember, keep an eye here on this value as well as this value. Okay, yeah. Again, let us also look at the QQ plot. If you look at the QQ plot, you can see that the data set are hovering around the linear line. Okay, so and then we can check the outlier box, and if you look at that for the political interest, you can see we do not have any outlier here. Same thing for government interest or interest in government. You can see we do not have any evidence of outlier. Assuming we do, we will be able to have some of them displayed here. So the next thing we need to do is to check our decision rules. So the first decision is, if Levene's test associated with an independent sample's t-test is not statistically significant, typically, that is, if the p-value is greater than 0.05, it indicates that the assumption of homogeneity of variances is met. So the next analysis we need to conduct is test of homogeneity of variances. Test of homogeneity of variances. So this is the next test you need to conduct. So to do that, we head over to independent samples t-test, and then we will import the two dependent variables into the test variables. So this gives you an idea that you can have more than one variable here. So you said test variables, and so we bring the group here. Remember, the rural and urban group, okay? Those in the rural and those in the urban, and then we will define the group. So for group 1 is urban, for group 2, rural residents. And so we leave it at default. It's already at 95% confidence interval, and then we click OK. So this is the test of statistics that is associated with the independent samples t-test. When we look at this here, you can see the groups, and there are 15 each. Okay, so we've got 15% in the rural and then 15 in the urban, just like I explained before. So if you look at the mean, you will see that the mean for the urban residents is 24.67, while that of the rural residents we have 24.27. So there's actually nothing. The difference here is pretty small, okay, less than 0.4. And then under the government, so we see that we've got under the for those in the urban, we've got 14.40, and then those in the rural 15 points. So the differences are pretty small. All right, and that leads us to the main result of independent samples t-test. So here you can see our interest is on the sig value for the Levene's test of equal variances or equality of variances. So here our interest is to be sure that these particular sig values here are not statistically significant or not below 0.05. Okay, so let me take you back to the rule. If the p-value is greater than 0.05, it indicates that the assumption of homogeneity of variances is met. In this case, you can proceed with a standard independent samples test, t-test, without any adjustments for unequal variances. Okay, if Levene's test were significant, you would need to use a version of the t-test that accounts for unequal variances, often referred to as the Welsh t-test. So let me show you what this means. At this point that we've got non-statistically significant result for the Levene's test for equality of variances, it means that we have met the assumption that of the equal variances. Okay, now we will report the result of the t-test here, the one that is up. Okay, assuming we do not meet, assuming this value here is less than 0.05, okay, so which means violating the Levene's test, we will assume equal variances not assumed. Okay, and so we will report the result down, which is referred to as the Welsh t-test. Now, the same thing applicable to the government, interest in government. So you can see both of them meeting the assumptions of the Levene's test. But again, let us also go back to the decision rule 2. If the significant value is less than 0.05, you reject the null hypothesis. This indicates that there is statistically significant evidence to suggest that there is a difference or effect present in the data being tested. Okay, so we will look at the result of the t-test, which is from this part here down to here. These are the results of the t-test, okay, for equality of mean. So here you will see the t-values associated with the both dependent variables, and these are the degree of freedom. But again, you look at the sig values at two-tailed, okay, you will see that both political interest and trust in government, we do not have statistically significant results. The p-values here are above 0.05. And so let me take you back again to the decision 2. If the significant value, which is the p-value, is greater than 0.05, you fail to reject the null hypothesis. This means that there is not enough statistical evidence to conclude that there is a significant difference. So we will fail to reject the null hypothesis. Okay? So for the hypothesis we've posed in this study, we will fail to reject the null hypothesis. This is how you can report the results of the independent samples t-test testing two variables. So you can look at the independent samples t-test result, and you can see the variable 1, political interest, and variable 2, trust in government, so which I have copied out from the SPSS results output. And so I've interpreted the results, so you can actually pause the video and then to screenshot these, or you can pause the video so you can read it. All right, so but I tried to capture the Levene's test. So the analysis shows that Levene's test for equal variances is not statistically significant in both dependent variables. So I put the sig values, that is this particular sig value here and this one, which indicates that the assumption of equal variance between the two groups is met. So that is meeting the first assumption. Hence, the researcher proceeds with interpreting the results of the independent samples t-test to determine whether there is any statistically significant difference between the means of the individuals in the urban and the rural areas, the two groups on political interest and trust in government. Okay, so this one is about meeting the Levene's test, reporting the Levene's test, that is this part. Okay, so now this is reporting this particular part. Now, thus, the researcher fails to reject the null hypothesis and conclude that there is no significant difference in political interest. And so this is the result here. You can see T bracket 28 is, this is the T, the degree of freedom, that is 28, equal to 0.118, and that is what I've reported here. And then the p-value, which is the sig value. This particular sig value, this is the sig value 0.907, that is this. And that of trust, the same thing. That is like saying TDF, okay? It's like saying TDF equal to this, that is this DF here, which is consistently 28, because remember we are reporting this particular result having met equal variances for Levene's test. So here is supposed to be 28. So between the groups being compared, this may suggest that the observed differences in means of political interest and trust in government scores between the groups are likely due to chance rather than a true difference in the population. So the next thing you need to do now is to start your discussion and then make meaning of these results. Explain to us what we need to know, and why do we have to fail to reject the null hypothesis. What knowledge can we likely derive from this analysis? So at this point, all right, so you need to make extensive explanations. If there are some theoretical connotations, you give us the theoretical implications, okay, theoretical and practical contributions of your result, of your statistical analysis. All right, so this is how you can run independent samples t-tests when you have two or more variables. Okay, so you can see I've taken the analysis far away from the usual predominantly male and female, and then using only one dependent variable. So this clearly shows that you can have more dependent variables, but again, the independent groups must be just two groups. So if it is more than two groups, then you will have to do one-way ANOVA test. So thank you so much for watching. If you find this video interesting, please share and then like the tutorial. Thank you for watching.